We're back.
Hey, Broderick.
I don't believe it. We're
Welcome
doing it
back to
again.
the show.
We're doing it again.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I
We
cannot
took a
tell you,
hiatus.
um, we keep talking over each other. What's going on? How are you?
We've really lost the ability to podcast. We're both just so excited. We just keep talking over each other.
Absolutely. Like I have, for those of us who follow us live, or for those people who follow us live, it's been a while. And I've been moving. I've got a lot of things going on, but I'm really excited to be back here. And at the very last minute, Broderick, I kind of like pulled the rug out from under you, and I'm like, I want to do a topic change. I want to talk about conferences. And like the reason that I want to talk about conferences is that like I just got back from High Ed Web in Albuquerque, New Mexico, at where like Four Kitchens, we had a booth, we had sponsorship, we went through and like just starting to get involved in that community. And I thought like it would be really cool to talk about from the perspective of sponsoring and attending a conference, like from the angle of being a like professional, from the angle of sponsoring it, and how to get a lot of value out of it, but also without being like a sales creep. So, because like I don't know, there are times whenever I think like, okay, I have to do salesy stuff, and like how can I do salesy stuff without being like creepy? Like how do I be like, so do you have money? Can you give me money? Please give me money. Project work, please. And so, trying to figure that out and balance those sorts of needs are like it's fresh in my mind, and I thought I'd like to capture it. And thank you for indulging me, Broderick.
Also, we're both wearing red today. It's the first time we've ever color coordinated anything. Just want to call that out for a second.
Yeah.
You always wear red.
I don't always
You're
wear red.
inconsistent. You.
Yeah.
I've only seen you wear red.
Well, maybe I do. Maybe it's just for you, Broderick. Maybe it's just for you. Maybe I color coordinate my outfits with everybody that I talk to, and that like in between meetings, I like jump into the bedroom, change my shirt. Like, oh, I'm talking to Broderick. I have to put on my red polo shirt. I'm talking to Yale. I have to put on my blue polo shirt.
You're on brand. You're really, you know how to design yourself for your good company. That's what you know. That's what you do. When you go to a conference, though, do you dress any differently? Do you wear nicer clothing for the types of conferences do you go to that you go to? Do you wear suits? Do you rock polos and jeans like on these calls? Like, what's your conference attire look like?
I mean, I work remotely, so the number one thing on the list is pants. You have to wear pants at the conference. So
Okay.
yeah,
Why?
so no Donald ducking, like at all. So
Oh.
yeah, Winnie the Poohing, whatever you want to call it, So honestly,
I think
my
Winnie the Poohing
attire,
is a worse term for that.
yeah, I think so too. Donald ducking, I don't know. It sounds like kind of cute and a throwback, but Winnie the Poohing, like, not so much.
You took it to the next level. You took yeah. We won't even use this platform to go into that. But you
No.
wear pants at conferences, so that's good. Take me through the rest.
Yes. And honestly, I find that like wearing just really like comfortable clothes, and making sure that like you fit in with what the conference is going to be like. So Four Kitchens, we sponsor DrupalCon. We just sponsored High Ed Web. We sponsor other events like throughout the year. And honestly, like a lot of those events, they're like, jeans and a t-shirt, jeans and a polo kind of situation. And I do see like I'm trying to think. So that's kind of the baseline. And whenever I attend, that's generally what I do. I try to wear like some of my Four Kitchens swag, whenever I'm there. Like I'll put on my like, you know, the Catachino shirt that we did for DrupalCon, which is like this brown shirt with this great artwork on it. I'll wear like all of the green logo shirts that I've been given. I'll wear the Four Kitchens like jacket to kind of like show like, you know, pride in where I work, and also to communicate to other people that like when I'm in the booth that I actually belong to the booth and that I'm not just some kind of weird person who's hanging out and just kind of standing there. So when you're in the sponsorship hall and it's your turn to work in the booth, you know, you want to try and make sure that you have all of the accoutrement of like the company. You want to represent it well. And when you're out in the conference, I mean, you can pretty much do whatever you want. If you want to take off that jacket that has the company logo on it, you can do that. And depending on like how incognito or how on brand you want to be, you can do that. So yeah, so it's yeah. Have seen a lot. I did see at High Ed Web. I saw a lot of blazers. There were a lot of people in booths of like very obvious salespeople who were wearing blazers. And it was
Yeah.
almost like it was like the salesperson uniform. Like you could always tell like
Mhm.
who working the booth were like the like, you know, like regular like people who work at the company who are helping at the booth versus the sales team. The sales team always wore blazers. So
So yeah, I mean, it's makes it really easy for you to know who to avoid. I remember when I first started working conferences, and I was in like the healthcare industry. I remember people would really want the flag that was at our table, our booth, and but desperately do whatever they could to avoid making eye contact with me. So a couple of times I'd see people like walk by our booth a couple of times and kind of look and give me a side eye. And so for them, like, all right, I'll just turn around. And I'd turn around for a second, I'd turn back around and the mug in front of me would be gone. Just like just take it and run, book it. So yeah, I mean, I'm not that into, which I really think is funny. I'm like, you really don't want to talk to the company, but you're willing to market them by getting their mug and stuff. But people love free stuff. So I tell you what,
yeah.
when I attend a conference now, I have a completely different view of conferences because I've worked so many. And in fact, I went to a fun conference. I went to last year in London. I went to the Star Wars Celebration,
Okay.
and I had never been to a conference or a convention, whatever. I'd never been to any sort of Comic Con or anything, and it was so big. And I just kept looking. I'm like, I was amazed that nothing was going wrong because every event I've been to, it seems like there, or if you're working it, the hope is like, we all know we're holding it together with duct tape. But the idea is for you to think it's not being held together by duct tape. And so the first 2 days, I was like, wow, like Lucasfilm's just they're next level. And then by day three, you started seeing the duct tape, and I'm like, ah, there it is. And I'm like, all right, they're human too. But that's the reality. I mean, no matter how well you plan things out, the bigger it is, something could go wrong at any point. You have contingencies and whatever else. And I think too, with that, you're talking about the exhibition hall, right? Like
Hmm.
salespeople on the
Yeah.
floor, really making people feel uncomfortable. And what's kind of funny about that from like a cultural perspective, we've all kind of signed off that we're like, well, they're paying for this event, they're the sponsors. They get to make you feel uncomfortable. That's the vibe of this thing. And having been in healthcare and financial services, and then I guess one Star Wars event, I'm just used to like that's just how it is. Until I went to DrupalCon and I saw like the first thing I saw was it Pantheon, or who had like the big giant Dungeons and Dragons, or was it no, that was Acquia
That was
who had
Aqua.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh wow, like this is so fun.
Hmm.
And Four Kitchens, like with the Four Kittens shirts that we had there, and Hounder was like they were brewing coffee on site, and it was fantastic. And so like there's a bunch of awesome people there that yeah, you'd still meet the occasional suit, but I really liked the approach of events like that where it's like, look, we're just going to be ourselves and we're going to try to foster organic conversations and bring in something like coffee, for example. That's what Hounder had. Have something that makes you want to, like, you kind of have to stop and ask and, whatever, talk to them for a second. And same thing with you guys with the shirts and the stickers. It was so cool to see and warm and inviting. And like, shout out to Sai, who wasn't wearing a blazer, but instead wearing like flannel, button down. And I'm just like, this, it was just, I don't know, it was just, I guess what I'm getting at with everything I've seen, it was something that made me feel like, oh, like I'd actually want to stop and ask more questions. I get my sticker and like I don't feel like I'm about to be sold to because you're in a blazer and you've got kind of sorry, but you didn't mention this earlier too. There's also like this look of the crazy guys and big smile. Hey, neighbor, how you doing?
Yeah.
How's it been? Like I'm like, we have never met. So it just automatically races up, your walls, and there's not a soul at Four Kitchens that has the crazy guys that's like, I'm going to sell to you now. You took my sticker. So,
Yeah, that's for me, that I don't know, maybe being a designer and a UX person, like I always try to think in terms of like what's the experience, and you want your booth experience to be inviting, you want it to be warm, you want to like, it's, in my opinion, it's better that people like come and get their coffee and go, or come and get their swag and go, and have a very pleasant, comfortable experience that way, than it is to try and like have some kind of like sales conversation at the booth. Because the reality is, I mean, sales gets done at conferences, but it doesn't get done at the booth. At least not as much as people expect. Like most of the like sales stuff that happens at conferences is like, hey, let's set up a meeting at the coffee shop nearby. Let's have a conversation in our hotel room to talk about like the details of these things. And those things happen at conferences and they're very important. But like that booth experience, that's where like a lot of people are going to experience you for the first time. It's where you're going to start building community. You mentioned DrupalCon, how Four Kitchen gives away like these Four Kittens t-shirts, and we've been doing that for 10 years, and we built this reputation, and it's a thing that people love about like DrupalCon. It's one of like the hot items every year. It's like, oh, gotta go to the Four Kitchens booth and get my Four Kittens t-shirt because I've gotten it every year. And that experience and that comfort is something that you want to try and grow and maintain, and like, if at all possible, you want to try and like, keep things going. But you also need to like so at High Ed Web this week, we were there for 3 days. And one of the things, like, a little aside, I actually texted you while I was at the conference, and I was like, you know what? I decided that I'm going to put on my Broderick hat and I'm going to become an extrovert for a few hours. And I wandered around the exhibit hall, and I talked to like 80% of the vendors who were there, like carried on conversations. I'm like, hey, is this your first year here? What does your company do? And like carried on these conversations to find out what everybody was about. And one of the things that I found was lacking, that I want to do better next time, is when you have a booth, have a very specific message that you want people walking by the booth to grab and take away. Because I encountered a lot of people who had like, we do Drupal sites and WordPress sites and agencies and full service and UX, and there was a lot of that. But there was one particular company that I was really impressed with. They were like, listen, our company is about student recruitment, marketing and student recruitment. And I'm like, I bet anybody who had business that was coming up, that had an RFP that was coming up, talk to those people. Because like, it was a very specific, they're like, they do this great. And everybody else was kind of like talking about how they're full service. And so I think that like one of the lessons that I learned from putting on my Broderick hat was that I needed to that next year, the next conference, have more specific messaging towards that audience at that conference.
yeah, I mean, I feel like when I go to conferences, I mentioned this at DrupalCon, and when I went to the Star Wars Celebration one, whenever I go to these things, I really am excited to meet new people. Like my wife thinks I'm nuts because New York City is my favorite place to visit in all of the US because I know I'm going to like every morning I step out the door, I'm going to come back at least with three new contacts in my phone every day of
Yeah.
people I'm like, that's my best friend forever. Like that's like I'm going to ride or die with this person I met today. Because I'm extroverted, and there's like even if you're introverted in that city, people are just far more accustomed to just talking to people there than anywhere
Absolutely.
else. There's so many people, and yeah, I get excited just to meet new people. What are your goals? What are you trying to do? And one of the things I love to do at conferences is, yeah, I meet with other vendors as well to see like, well, what differentiates you? What makes you special? And well, you're doing the same thing they're doing. And like sometimes like I'm one person that I met with. They were really nice, but they offered basically a flat out same service as somebody else. And I had to start thinking about this exercise. I'm like, well, what's your messaging? How are you different than everybody else here? And so when I go around and it's easily identifiable, I'll start, going to sessions and also meeting the attendees. And if
Mhm.
they ever bring up something that I'm like, oh my gosh, you need to go talk to this person at this booth because they've got it. Like they've your answer, trust me. And yeah, so like just being excited to meet people, help them solve their problems, right? You're at a conference for a reason. Whether you're a vendor, you're trying to grow, which I can empathize with that. If you're an
Mhm.
attendee, you're trying to personally or professionally grow. I can empathize with that. And so it's this really awesome culture of everyone trying to advance in
Yeah.
some way, typically. Or if it's like a just a convention instead of a conference, well, they're all there because they share a love for something. And so that makes it really, I mean, either way, there's some sort of passion there, or there's something that brings everybody together that we can all share. Like, okay, we understand we're here for this purpose. And whether you're a vendor or you're an attendee, you know, having that mindset is like, it is critical when you're going to it because I've talked to so many people who are going to a conference and I'm like, well, what are you trying to get out of this? And they say, oh, I don't really know. I had some like reimbursement for my company or is this amount every year and I got to pick a
Mhm.
conference. So I guess I picked this one. And I'm like, well, yeah, you can go. And if it's in San Diego, they'll probably have a couple like a day or two at the beach and that'll be fun. But if
Yeah.
you really go in with a plan of an attack, whether you're an attendee or a sponsor, well, having that plan, and then, again on the sponsorship side too, it's the same thing. Like I've met plenty of BDs, so I'm like, oh, so you're going to this event? They're like, yep. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Well, we got this booth. I'm like, and then what? Well, I talked to some people, and then we're coming home. That's the
Mhm.
plan of the. And I'm like, wow, like I work with you, and I'm not excited to talk to you. Like,
Yeah.
what are you specifically going to do to help stand out for designing a good company? When we were at DrupalCon, you printed out business cards, and we went
Mhm.
around and we started asking people questions about who had the best swag at DrupalCon. That was a better sales tactic or just brand awareness tactic for Four Kitchens than wearing a blazer, going up to people and saying, here is our business card. Would you like to be on the podcast? This or that. No, we started interviewing people about their shirts and their experience and people that were like, I do not want to be on camera. By the end, they're like, can you tell me more about this podcast? This is actually really cool, right?
Yeah.
We're like creating community.
Yeah, and that I think is the big thing about like having a booth at these sorts of events that happen year over year is that it's I mean, you can view it as a one-off investment and that's fine. Just like your example where like I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to people and then I'm going to just fly home and be done. Um creating and being there year over year and engaging with the community and becoming involved, is really that's the important part. Like the sponsoring and the having a booth, like those are things that you do as being
Mm-hmm.
members of a community. You don't like I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but I view like if you do those things, that's kind of like a promise that you're engaging with the community. Like for instance, in the last like 9 months before High Ed Web, I've been in their Slack, like answering questions, talking to people, trying to be like part of that community to understand it better. Because I don't want to be an outsider who's like kind of pretending to speak the lingo, or like, I don't want to be perceived as like an outsider. I want to be part of that community because I believe in what that community is doing. And for me, sponsoring it and giving a talk at the conference, like that's contributing back to this community that I want to be a part of. And that's where like you start to have connections grow and have things like start to happen. And that's where like, you know year over year those investments begin to pay off. Like, I mean, for Kitchens, our sponsorship of DrupalCon goes way back. We've been like big money partners with the Drupal Association for a long time because it's very important to us to be part of this community. It is also business development, but we legitimately have a love for this community, like amongst our staff. And like attending these conferences, you want to try and be part of that community too. And so like that kind of like is really sometimes a missing piece of that. Like, you mentioned like the Star Wars Celebration conference. I mean, that's a shared love of Star Wars, like probably like just about everybody on the floor has their own like Chewbacca roar. You know what I mean? Like it's like do your Chewbacca impression.
Yeah, right. I'll tell you what, when I went to, and I've learned so much from like this one convention I went to, I learned so much about how to not just be a better marketer, how to be a better business development person, but just how to be a better, I guess, brand ambassador. Because when I went to the Star Wars Celebration, yeah, there was a ton of folks in cosplay, and everyone had this business card with a QR code, and they were ready to plug something, but they did something that made people like say, "Oh, can I come up to you and take a picture with you?" And, we all want to do that with our booth at these conferences. People want to create something that has some sort of pull or appeal, and yeah, and then makes them come up and ask questions. But there's something about everyone knowing, like, oh no, they love this.
Mhm.
They love doing this thing. And when you have employees at a conference who like really showcase they love their company, like as I mentioned with that I saw at DrupalCon, that man, even at Adobe Max, I just didn't really see that. And I would have thought, yeah, at a design conference, we'd really see people out the wazoo doing some, not so much. I thought it was all like fine, and everyone was just kind of like, just kind of trying to keep up with the Joneses, just like everywhere else. And so going to these, conventions where people really are about this topic and they love it, just the air around the entire place, the energy, it was electric. And so I've had that thought a lot because I mean, it's conference season's coming up for us. We're going to 3 different events. And I've thought about that. I talked to my team about it a lot. It's like, what can we do that makes people like it's something that's identifiable to us, it's specific to us, but people are really excited to keep seeing us at events because they know it's going to be this kind of thing's going to be here, right? They're excited because we're doing something different and we love it. And when you come up to our booth to talk to us, we're never going to talk about ourselves until you ask. We're just going to keep asking about you. And if all you want is a free shirt, then cool. Thanks for marketing us. But I've given that out before where people are like, well, you just keep giving me free tips. Like, I'm not going to work with you. And I've said, yeah, but you'll probably meet someone who needs help. And you're going to send them our way because I never tried to sell you on anything. They're like, well, that's a good point. And so go to conferences. If you're sponsoring, just showcase like wear your why. Wear it on
Mhm.
your sleeve, right? Put it out there for everyone to easily see. It's going to be a lot more attractive than just having a really nice blazer. And if you can do that and really ask about them until they're ready to ask about you, learn about them. And then finally, if you're going as an attendee, really understand what's your why. What are you trying to get out of it? How you're trying to be better? And if you have that and everyone has that common goal, like I mentioned, then everybody should win in that conference setup. So no, I mean that's at least what I think people should do. Just be a little bit more strategic with those events if that's something they're considering doing. And yeah, you really you're able to maximize your time there and conference like a pro.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, so if there was one takeaway from this episode that I want people to walk away with, that is that you want to have a positive impression, and you do that by giving away advice. You do that by giving away something interesting, giving people an interesting experience, and that creates a powerful takeaway for people, much more than whatever swag is. Like, listen, if you want to give away t-shirts, great, put a sign that says no eye contact required, and give people
Yeah,
permission to just walk up and take the stuff. But for those people who want to talk with you, like, ask them questions, help them out, point them to resources, or have
totally.
like something that's like just you. Like, for instance, it, I know I'm heading into like wrapping up, but like I keep thinking of all of these things. One of the things that we did at our booth at High Ed Web that we did just really small, and I want to expand on next year, is that our CEO Todd brought like gadgets with him for the booth. Like, he had this like homemade like programmable like Drupal that lit up, that he had made. He had a Lego version of the Drupal like logo that he had made. He had this like square LCD panel that was programmable that he bought for like $30 on sale on Amazon, and it was his latest gadget that he was playing with. And I'm like, you know what? Next year, like, let's make the booth just like all of these things. Like, bring in all of this maker
Yeah,
stuff, because that's really like part of like Four Kitchens culture, is like making and exploring all of these things, and like, make it your own weird.
love that, man. Make it your own weird. I don't have anything else to say. I think that's it. We're not going to end it any better than that. Just by me talking and extending it any farther than it is, we're not going to have as good of a closing as that. So, for folks who enjoyed this episode today, we're not going to sell you. You know what to do. You know where to go find more information about us. We've been saying it every episode before that. Links in the description. Thanks for checking out this week's episode of Design in Good Company. And we'll see y'all again real soon.
No eye contact required.
We'll see. None.